Okay, so we're here at a beautiful day in Los Angeles. National Beer License in the background there. Coach Wurzberger is one of the staff members here, and we're going to ask him some good questions, dig deep, peel back the layers of the onion, and really help our coaching community. So first of all, Coach, obvious first question. How would you define coaching when it applies to coaching soccer? When a player or a coach says they're a soccer coach, what does that mean?
Soccer coaches are judged ultimately on, development of the players. We have to guide and instruct players, hopefully inspire, develop them in our charge to be the best possible players they can be.
Okay.
They have goals and aspirations. We try to help them reach those. The team generally is more important than the individual, but we try to develop everybody within that team shape and that team format so that they enjoy and get a fulfillment from the game, improve their knowledge and their skills, and hopefully advance up the ladder and play at the next level and accomplish the things that they're looking to try to get out of playing sport, and specifically what they want to achieve as a soccer player. So it's all-encompassing. You have to inspire. You've got to be many things to a team and to players, and you hope you do that job as well as you possibly can so that they enjoy what they're doing, yet and strive for improvement and compete every day at practice and so forth. So it's a realistic game-like environment that helps them be successful on the weekend when they play the match.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so there's a lot of different facets to coaching soccer, obviously. One of the things that we're working on here at this coaching blog is to put across to our community that relying on drills, soccer drills, is not necessarily coaching. We see a lot of coaches where they'll set up a drill, A to B to C, crosses it, D runs in and finishes kind of thing. But there's a lot of opportunities to coach within that drill. So, Coach Wurzberger, what are some examples of the things a coach to focus on when they're running a drill?
Well, drills are like anything else. It depends on what you want to use them for. When you set up a drill where they go from A to B to C, there's no thinking involved, so it's strictly a technical type exercise.
Right.
So there's some value to that if you're trying to groove a pattern of technique or whatever.
Right.
Of course, you're talking about practicing technique in isolation is limited because dealing with the defenders and reduced amount of playing space and time because of defensive pressure is really the important things, what's going to help them on a game day. Right. So you have to keep those things in mind. You could be using a drill for early, like in a session for a warm-up type thing where the ball transfers and you move, and there's nothing wrong with that if it's used in context of preparing them to get into a game phase, which
right.
means reacting under pressure, having all the elements of a real game, opposition, space being a factor, competition for the ball, and all those things. So like anything, you have to use a drill skillfully for its right purpose and move on. The tactical application of technique, though, when defenders are starting to be part of the exercise, and then reacting is what's important there. So,
right.
But there can be some transfer from the basic technique of doing a movement pattern drill, a
right.
Dutch diamond or
right.
triangle, all the passing. Nothing wrong with repetitions,
right.
to get but it's kind of a technical warm-up. It'd be something that would precede the action of playing and being in a more game-like
right.
environment. So you have to use it for what it's good for, but certainly can give you ideas, and patterns of play can be implemented. Sometimes
right.
that stuff at the end of training. I mentioned at the beginning, it could be at the end
right.
as a cool down where you want a crossing pattern where the ball's knocked wide and people are working on the timing on runs into the box. That can be without opposition initially.
Okay.
So you groove your technique and your knowledge of where to run, but then it must be put to the test by putting it into a game.
Like a pattern play kind of thing.
That's right. That's so when you say drill, it could be a compilation of a lot of those
okay.
things.
Now, what are some common mistakes you see from a coach who's running a drill? Are there any glaring mistakes that a lot of coaches miss when they're running a drill?
Well, they got to know the purpose of what they're doing and how long. You certainly wouldn't want to do it long. Hopefully a drill accomplish objective X. When it's achieved, they're warmed up and they're passing the ball and they've had a lot of repetition, a lot of touches in a short amount of time, then making it more game-related, moving on. Okay. Sticking in it too long obviously would be a mistake, but there may be reasons why. Every situation depends. But drills are a small part of the of a coach's repertoire. Having knowledge of those, nothing wrong with that, but it's got to be used in the appropriate way.
Okay, well that's a good lead into the next question, and I know it's not a very good question, but a typical practice. If you were running a practice beginning, middle, end, what are the typical components that you want to make sure you have in your practice?
I think most training sessions, when you go and observe the highest level, are going to have a warm-up phase when the players arrive and have to get ready for the physical, the technical, and the tactical demands that follow. So some thought to how you're going to warm up.
Yep.
The more game-related, the better, in regards to having the ball if you can, and speed, agility, quickness routines are quite the rage, where you're working on foot speed and so forth, because it's a factor and it can speed up your technique and speed up your foot movement. So that would be something. After your warm-up phase, there's normally some kind of possession that's played that emphasizes passing and receiving skills. The bread and butter skills of the game have to constantly be practiced, and many possession games allow you to use the numbers to emphasize an overload where maybe 4 play against 2, so that there's some rhythm, there's some overload of players where hopefully you get some repetition and some success of rhythm of play, of keeping sustained possession before a mistake is made due to the pressure or a technical breakdown. So some possession phase, that could be in a box, but very quickly you want to take that to a directional kind of game, so that you're defending one area, holding onto the ball and advancing it to another area. And if you can do that by emphasizing technique of building the game through midfield, that's kind of the level you want to strive for, to have that ability to work through a defense, not only over top of it or around it, but it's all those things coming together that make a team be effective, because they have to break down what defense is thrown at them on the game day, and having more confidence and knowledge how to do that, the better for them. Then you want to finish, obviously, with a game to goal. With goalkeepers, you want to replicate the final stage, your match game stage. There could be conditions on that, but maybe not. And then many teams have some finishing exercises. Normally, I've changed over my career, I have them at the end, because once you get people in lines and some of your shooting drills and so forth, it's hard after that to get a game going. So I put that as a personal choice. You could put it in different places. I've learned over time to put it at the end, where it's somewhat of a cool down, but the technical execution is kind of like the final thing that they do. It could be with opposition, oftentimes not. And those are 4 phases. Now, we haven't talked about fitness. If you're running a well-designed practice, there should be high-intensity play for short periods of time. That's where you'll get a fitness component built in, economical training, where you're working on technique, you're working on understanding and positioning and movement. However, you're getting a physical benefit because it's highly intense, it's controlled, and it's usually for a set amount of time, 4 to 6 minutes. Take a break, get a drink, come back, regulate that interval training type of method, where you work really hard, then you take a break, work really hard, and for set periods of time. And the organization's got to be a factor, because you might have to have some extra balls around. Ball goes out of play, there's got to be a ball played back in quickly, so that there's no lag time, if you're looking to also build fitness and conditioning.
We'll have to
so the more you can do that in a game, in a possession game or a phase of your practice, the more effective you are in terms of building that aerobic stamina and the things that you want from a soccer player.
We'll often say in practice, where if they're not working hard enough, we'll say, hey, get it up to a game-like fitness level, or we're going to do conditioning. And that's kind of a motivation. Sometimes the players are going through the motions, and you say, hey guys, this has got to be game-like, let's get it up to game-like intensity, or we'll leave the ball, so we're going to do some work. And then they realise you're better working hard with the ball than doing doggies or something like that. Now, in terms of the scrimmage, a lot of coaches will do a real good session, warm-up, technical, tactical, scrimmage maybe with some restrictions, and then they'll say, okay guys, now 10 minutes of open scrimmage, and then they go start collecting the balls and the bibs and everything. When it comes to the actual real game itself, the 11-on-11 or 8-on-8 or whatever your team allows you to have, how important is it for the coach to watch that, still get involved when they're just kind of in free play? Or do you say, hey, I've worked them for 90 minutes, it's their time, or do you still want to be involved when they're scrimmaging?
It depends. As usual, there's no absolutes
Right,
many
correct.
times. It depends on what you're doing with your team, the phase that you're in, how close it is to a game, and so forth.
Right.
If you've had a ton of input on the players from beginning to end, maybe you do back away and give them their time.
Right.
In most cases, though, you want the final game to be something where it all comes together.
Exactly.
The players understand, they compete, so having a competition element in practice is big.
Right.
That's where you'll get real game-like play, is if you put something at stake or give points for
Right.
teams, whatever. Keeping track of the score can sometimes generate that competitive element.
Right.
But it's important that the players always think that and know that you're watching, especially if they know you're picking the side,
Right,
and they have to play well during the week to get considered to start a match. That's
Right.
where you're going to get the realistic competition. And so you can't, take away from the fact they should always know you're watching
Right.
in everything that they do. And it should be, and you can coach without stopping play. If you want them to have the run of play, you can still coach from the touchline. Say you got a pass has got to be better, open up sooner. You can give verbal cues
Right.
in terms of things that you'd like to see, which is another way of telling the players you're still paying attention to the detail of what they're doing.
Right.
However, you're giving them the freedom to play and move. So it's a combination. It depends on the situation, but in general, you want that final game to be the crescendo of your practice. It should reflect everything you're working on, and hopefully the competitive spirit. The players leave the field with a good feeling that they've improved as an individual and as a team, and that it was a worthwhile practice.
Yeah, that's important. When your players finish the practice, you want them buzzing, endorphins going, high-fiving kind of thing, where they've had a real good practice so they can come back the following day and recreate that. That's important. Okay, well, some great points there on coaching and practices.